If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine, and maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them, from disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Hey, warmer from the low. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. We've got an excellent podcast for you guys. We're going to be looking at the bracket. We're going to be diving in on what we've been seeing in the NIT and if perhaps what we're seeing with the transfer portal opening up on Monday is killing the NIT with our good friend Tristan Freeman. He does amazing work over at Busted Brackets, and you're going to notice we have a lot of the same upsets. I did not plan it out that way. I always like to get on guests that sometimes they agree with me, sometimes that they don't. This time, me and Tristan just so happen to agree on darn near everything, so we're going to be getting some nice vibes going there. In the final segment, going to get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this College Basketball Wednesday. As we hit some bank shots, if you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of two ways to be able to fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at Gina_D1. Keep in mind, letters EM, they mean does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. Other ways, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. And from there, you're able to fire on whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Did not really get in a lot of Twitter/X questions today, other than why in the heck is Virginia incapable of scoring? So let's take a look at everything that we saw from the NCAA Tournament, NIT, and CIT. Try to find some trends and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
It's hard to believe that Virginia is not the top under team in all of college basketball after what we saw. An absolute turd of a performance that featured them not scoring a point in real time. I had timed it out at 55 minutes, might have been closer to 52/53 minutes, but in real time, they went without scoring a point in north of 50 minutes as they just get completely lambasted in this one, 67-42. I apologize, I had the DK Network write a pick of the over. It should have been Colorado State. That was a faux pas from me. We will do better moving forward. As for Colorado State, I mean, they did their part. Very good performance. Joel Scott, 9 of 13 from the floor, 23 points, 11 rebounds. Colorado State absolutely romped on the glass, by the way, 43-24. And honestly, if you're looking at the pacing and things like that, this wasn't an awful write-up. It's just the fact that Virginia went 14 of 56 from the floor. And that's part of the issue with the write-up as well. We trusted in Virginia being able to score points, and that's something that I just should not have done. So shame on me there. And in case you were wondering, for Virginia, they actually played this season 19 unders of 15 overs. How they got 15 overs, I have no idea. As Reese Beekman had 15 points, and that was about it for the team. He went 7 of 7 at the free throw line, meaning the rest of the team went 4 of 10 at the charity stripe. Colorado State, they're going to be taking on Texas in the round of 64 in the NCAA Tournament. And then in the other first 4 game, we saw Wagner as the underdog be able to get the job done outright, 71-68 over Howard. For Wagner, with 7 healthy players, they went 8 of 17 from 3-point range. They're a slow-tempo team, much like Virginia, but they weren't completely stagnant and rudderless. Seth Downs, 16 points, 5 boards. For Howard, they play even up with regards to the turnovers, but they just didn't shoot the way that Wagner did. They went 7 of 24 from 3. They also went 22 of 57 from the floor. For Wagner, it was the Melvin Council, that got it done for them. 21 points, 5 boards, 7 assists. So Wagner, they're able to survive, they're able to advance, and they've actually been a relatively solid under team this season as well. This was one of their games that did go over, but that said, with Wagner, 19 unders to just 11 overs thus far this season, and the top ATS team in all of college basketball, that is once again Minnesota, the state with the smallest strengths in the Union and the NIT. They pull off an upset. They get the job done against Butler. This by a count of 73-72 for Minnesota. They were able to go just 6 of 22 from 3-point range, but they won this game by winning the turnover battle by a count of 14-10 as Dawson Garcia just continues to be awesome, 25 points, and then Elijah Hawkins, just 11 points, but 15 assists and 4 turnovers, was relatively efficient there. Butler does go 8 of 20 from 3-point range, but they weren't able to do as good of a job inside. They go 20 out of 39 on their 2-point shots, and Minnesota they were able to go 24 out of 32 from 2-point range as well. So Minnesota, they find a way, they get the job done against Butler. You saw Iowa be able to play yet another over, and they take down Kansas State by kind of 91-82 for Kansas State. Bad shooting is costing them all season long. 8 of 30 from 3-point range. Iowa, Peyton Sanford, Ben Krikke, they were able to combine for 54 big points in this one, and Iowa, they have scored now at least 75 points in all but 3 out of their last 37 games at Carver Hawkeye Arena. You saw Virginia Tech take down one of your best against the spread teams in all of college basketball in Richmond. This by a count of 74-58. Richmond ends the year 21-11-1 against the spread, and for Richmond, they just didn't have it on this night. They went 6 of 22 from 3-point range. Virginia Tech, they go 7 of 18 from distance, so they're able to move on to the next round of the NIT, and so does South Florida. South Florida, by the way, 28-3 against the spread. They went outright as underdogs against Central Florida by kind of 83-77, and for South Florida, 13 out of 24 from 3-point range. Selton Miguel is able to come in off the bench, go 4 of 8 from distance with 19 points. You also had Jaden Reed coming off the bench with double figures as well. Now for South Florida, they did lose the turnover battle 17-13, and you did have Jalen Sellers not selling this one. He had 24 points. He did his part for Central Florida, but Central Florida just not able to guard the arc, and that allows South Florida to be able to survive and advance. If you're looking at the CIT, by the way, Abilene Christian with a win and cover. This team has actually gotten relatively hot here towards the back half of the season. Abilene Christian is able to win that game by kind of 73-67, and whereas Abilene Christian team, they've now been able to win, I believe, 5 out of their last 7 games. Corpus Christi has been one of your best against the spread teams in all of college basketball, 19-9-1 against the spread, but they went 2 of 24 from 3-point range. Abilene Christian, they went 8 of 24 from distance, and Abilene Christian, even though they lose the turnover battle 14-10, they were able to get 16 big points in this one out of Mr. Nasir Naguri. Hopefully I said that correctly. And you also got a double-double, 15 points, 10 points out of Leonardo Battiol, the gentleman from Italy. Hopefully I got that one correct. And this is one that the line movement was correct on. Boston College had opened up as a 6-point underdog against Providence, closed more around 3 to 3.5. Boston College, they get a 62-57 win. As for Providence, they go just 6 of 24 from 3-point range. They were without their top scorer in this game, as you're without Mr. Do-It-All, who had been logging for the team 19.5 points, 8.5 boards in Devin Carter. And for Boston College, Quentin Post, he was out there. He only had 12 points in this one, but does enough for Boston College to be able to get the job done. Georgia, they also get the win and cover against Xavier by kind of 78-76. Line closes at 1.5, and Georgia was really up in this game. They were up 21 with about 11:30 remaining, so if you had the under in this game, you had to hold on to your butts on this one, but Georgia with Silas Demery being able to supply 16 points, they find a way to get it done, and North Texas also is able to get it done, 84-77. They take down LSU. This was a favorite that I liked outright on the money line, and for LSU, 11 of 23 from 3, but North Texas, they go 11 of 26 from the outside. It's been a little bit of a wobbly up and down year for this North Texas Mean Green team, but they're 19-12 against the spread, and keep in mind, they are the defending champions of the NIT. Ohio State, they hope to never be back in the NIT as well, but for Ohio State, they were able to win but not cover against Cornell, 88-83 the final. You do want to be taking a look at these motivational spots, I feel like, in the NIT. There are some teams that they're pretty fired up to be there, other teams not so much, and then in the CIT as well, Tarleton State, they continue to be able to make you money, win and cover against Texas Southern, this by a count of 82-71. This was a closing line right around about 10 to 10.5. So you did have to hold on to your butts on that one. But Tarleton State, they're 19-11 against the spread. And then to the CIT Final Four. There were 9 teams in your CIT bracket. So yeah, it was a very, very strange look to say the least. But if you are looking at college basketball right now, it has been a wild up and down year. We've been seeing these favorites really coming through. In the last 7 days, 89, 77, and 5 against the spread are these favorites. Meanwhile, the under is sitting at about 51.8%. 88 unders to 82 overs with a few pushes along the way. That's involving all tournaments and overall for the season. Favorites are ending at 50.6%, 2,792, 2,725, and 99 against the spread. Meanwhile, the over sitting at 50.9% for the campaign, 2,827 overs, 2,724 unders. So that's what we're seeing in college basketball right now, and that's what we all got on Tuesday. Now let's turn it forward to Wednesday, and let's take a look at the bracket of one Tristan Freeman, who does amazing work over at Plus and Brackets. He joins me next on Chris Gilson, who is myself, Greg Peters, and now a part of the Decent Family Podcast. lovely Las Vegas for Christmas Hoops with myself, Greggy, now part of the Family Podcast, and it's great to be joined by this man. It's Tristan Freeman. He does absolutely remarkable work over at Bus and Brackets, taking a look at this great game of college basketball. He has been locked in all season long in terms of being able to identify these teams, being able to break down all these teams from the biggest of the big conferences all the way down to the smallest of the small. He is set for what is going to be a tremendous NCAA tournament and so much more. And you're able to follow him on Twitter/X at HoopsNut351 all together. And Tristan, it is always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you.
Yeah, Greg, thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining me, Tristan. And Tristan, it is a great time of year. We've got the NCAA tournament getting all gassed up, good to go. But I do want to address something first because you are out there in the Pittsburgh area, so you've got good perspective on this. It's become a bit of a trend this season with the transfer portal literally opening up after Selection Sunday. We saw like 280 some odd players enter in on Monday. And because of this, I think that we saw a lot of teams like a team out there in your neck of the woods, Pittsburgh, Ole Miss, Memphis, list goes on, deny these NIT bids. Just where are we at in terms of the college basketball season with this? And do you think that it is affecting the product that we're seeing on the court in terms of these smaller tournaments? Because I do think that had a big impact this season.
Yeah, I mean, it's had an impact, but I think people are blowing the transfer portal, date after Selection Sunday a bit out of proportion. We had a good 20 players basically announced that they were entering the portal before Monday once the seasons were over. The only thing the portal is just when players officially enter it for legal reasons. But there's nothing stopping guys from once their season's done announcing that, hey, I'm leaving. If you're interested, hitting me up. So whether we move the date back or whatever, that's not going to stop the fact that players are moving. And it's clearly not stopping teams from recruiting because Alabama, who's a top 4 seed and a Final Four contender, just landed Houston Millett, a Pepperdine, who was someone who announced out loud that he was leaving, and one day later Alabama gets him. So obviously this stuff is going behind the scenes, whether it's announced or not. It ultimately is what it is. I don't think it's affected the product too much because, when some guys get chances to move to the right spot, they excel like a Dalton Connect, and others tumble. And that's just kind of what it's going to be for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, and I do think that it is going to be interesting to see if things are going to be the same moving forward. I know that there's been a lot of dislike for it, but to your point as well, we saw a guy in Chris Madden who currently plays for Cornell. His team actually took the court on Tuesday against Ohio State. He actually announced that he was going to be entering into the transfer portal before the season even started because he's out there in the Ivy League, and the Ivy League does not allow for graduate students. They do not allow for that fifth year, so there's a lot of different elements to it, and can't help but laugh at some of these guys that when their seasons ended, we saw them like 10 minutes later enter into the transfer portal unofficially as well. So there is a lot of that going on. So something to watch out for moving forward. And something else to watch out for is these first 4 games that are going to be happening out there on Wednesday. How about if we dive in on this Colorado versus Boise State game? With Colorado, they do find themselves as a favorite in the spot. But what do you make out of this matchup between two teams out there in the Mountain Time Zone? And a pair of teams are relatively good on the glass, but both have their positive and negatives with regards to their offense.
And this is a really interesting matchup because it doesn't feel like a first 4 game. I think Boise State was somewhere a lot of us has a 7-8 seed, and that they probably were underseeded by a fair bit because they're a talented team led by Tyson Dagerhart. They can score, they're good on the boards, they can defend. They're a good team, but in Colorado, they've dealt with a lot of injuries. I think talent-wise, they're probably a top 20 team. And they probably had everything worked out well, could have been a 5 or 6 seed themselves. So now that they're as healthy as they can be, they're a team that I'm going to watch because talent-wise, they could match up with just about anyone. As we've seen early in the season, I think Colorado has a good chance to win. And if they do, it could get scary for their side of the bracket.
Yes, it certainly could be. And then the other game that we are going to be seeing in terms of the NCAA tournament on Wednesday, and I think that this game has so much intrigue, it's the Grambling versus Montana State game, as Grambling literally has every one of their wins coming against either non-D1 teams or against teams out there in the SWAC, though they did come close against Southeast Louisiana. They did give Drake a relatively good run for their money as well. And Montana State, they did knock off Colorado earlier. They did knock off California earlier in the season, but as we know, it's a California team that really did not live up to expectations themselves. How do you foresee this battle of 216 seeds playing out?
The Big Sky usually don't find themselves in this situation, but that's what happens when you have a ton of upsets. Montana State is not a good defensive team at all, but they do have some potent scores led by Robert Ford. Grambling, with this being their first tournament, they were the best team in SWAC. They lead defensively. They're not going to score much, but they're also fairly small. I think that's going to be a concern. Montana State should win this game. If they don't, it will be a sizable upset. But again, who knows? But we'll see how the Grambling in their first tournament experience.
And we have seen a lot of these SWAC teams fare relatively well out there in Dayton. Once you get past Dayton, that's a little bit of an issue, but in Dayton, they're able to do a relatively solid job. So we shall see what happens with those two games. It's Tristan Freeman, who does great work over at Bustin' Brackets, is joining me right here on Coast to Coast Hoops. And then let's dive into the bracket itself, because we've got ourselves, in my opinion, some very interesting games for the round of 64. And just want to get your thoughts here in terms of just when you saw the bracket announced on Sunday. Was there one or two matchups that when you saw them unveiled, you thought either, man, this is going to be a spot for an upset, or man, this is just going to be a really good, fun, entertaining game in general?
Kansas and Samford, it sort of stands out, partly because Samford's one of the best scoring offenses in the country, and Kansas has no depth right now. We don't know the status of Kevin McCullough and Hunter Dickinson. I think Hunter Dickinson's going to be fine, but who knows what will happen with McCullough. And they don't have a lot of depth. So Samford's making shots, and Kansas is having to keep up. Unless Dickinson can go for 30, or they find a way to get KJ Adams more involved, that could legitimately be an upset watch. And then Creighton and Akron, it's a very interesting game because we've seen Creighton have times where they sort of play down the teams, and Akron has talent. Obviously, Enrique Freeman, the nation's leading rebounder, is fantastic. He can go for 20 and 20. Ali, the fourth, who came back after a year of Butler, he's a capable scorer. They're a talented team. They're better than the typical 14 seed. And then all eyes are going to be on Gonzaga and McNeese State, because Gonzaga, even if what's considered a down year for them, still ends up being a 5 seed, a legit Final Four contender. But in McNeese, they ran through the Southland, and their two best wins were against VCU and Michigan. If Will Wade can find a way to beat Mark Few in the first round, then his already high stock is just going to soar. And I think that'll be an incredibly interesting matchup to see, does McNeese stand a chance against Gonzaga's front?
Yep, I do think that is going to be so interesting to watch out for. And I do need to bring it full circle with you in terms of the ACC, because you do such a good job of covering that conference. How do you view that 6-11 matchup between NC State and Texas Tech? Because it's a Texas Tech squad that coming into the year, I thought that they were going to be a little bit more of a defense-oriented team. Instead, they've been a really good team in terms of generating offense. The defense has left a little bit of something to be desired. Meanwhile, for NC State, they've always been a team that has done a nice job taking care of the ball. They've never had an issue on that front, but they've been up and down all season long, but really put it together this past week in the ACC tournament.
Texas Tech, they sort of slid a little bit. That the big win over BYU sort of covered the fact that they were on a downtrend towards the end of the year, but they're still very capable, as you said. At NC State, there were questions about whether or not they quit towards the end of the regular season. I think they lost 4 straight. Kevin Keats' job was on the line. But then, the ACC, as we saw Virginia Tech a few years ago, once the bracket opens up, anything can happen. NC State has talent. Obviously, DJ Horde is a near 20-point-per-game scorer. DJ Burns, everyone fell in love with last week, is obviously the big body that can score. They're getting good production from guys like Jayden Taylor and Michael O'Connell. Now, all of a sudden, they got the depth to compete, and they can be a very potent offensive team. They're a double-digit seed to watch, because even though they only got here from the auto bid, they still have 8-9 seed level talent when it all clicks, and we'll see if it continues clicking.
Yep, we shall see. And I mean, DJ Burns really captured the imagination of the nation with how he was able to play towards the ACC tournament as well. So him being able to translate that against Texas Tech is going to be so big, especially if Texas Tech doesn't have Warren Washington out there, who's been dealing with injury as well. So I do think that there's a lot of fun with that regard. And Tristan, I do want to throw at you one of my upsets and want to get your take on it, whether I am off base on this one or if there might be a little bit of credence to it. I took 114 seed in my bracket. I went with Akron being able to knock off Creighton. It's a Creighton team that I feel like they rely a little bit too much on the three. Akron does a good job of being able to guard that three, and then Enrique Freeman down low is someone that I like. I want to get your thoughts here, though, because I do think that there are a lot of upset candidates on this bracket. I couldn't see it from a lot of the other teams, 14 seed or lower, but do you think that there's any shot whatsoever that Akron pulls this off, or is this going to be a little bit of a rough one for them against Creighton?
Well, I hope they pull it off because I picked that too in my bracket.
Hey, so all right.
It's really interesting because there's a lot of talk about the Big East after all of their bubble teams got snubbed. It's like, hey, you three, come handle it for us. But Marquette has injury issues with Kolek. And again, as I said, Creighton is inconsistent, to say the least. They have the talent to make a Final Four run, absolutely. But their defense can let teams stay in games. And again, Akron is a team that can stay in it. And look, there's going to be upsets. We all know that. I think when you're trying to find upsets, that sometimes can work against you because usually the ones that's most unexpected to happen, looking at Tennessee St. Peter's there. But I think just on paper, it's like if you had to bet money on a 13 or lower seed to win, then it feels like the Akron matchup is the one that looks most appealing.
Yep, I'm right there with you. I was thinking the exact same thing. I do think that with Akron, they are going to be very, very live in this game. And, hey, before we got on air, I had no idea that you had Akron in your bracket. That was something that was just sort of spur of the moment. So, I absolutely love that. It's Tristan Freeman, who does great work over at Boston Brackets, is joining me on Coast to Coast Hoops. And then, is there another upset or two, whether that be in the round of 64 or a little bit beyond that, you are liking in terms of your bracket, and maybe it's a team that you felt like got a little bit disrespected in the seeding that you do think is going to be able to go far?
Yeah, I think the entire Mountain West got disrespected besides Boise State in the region, with several of them being double-digit seeds. I'm looking at Nevada and New Mexico in the West region, and they got some very vulnerable top seeds to take on at the bottom in Arizona and Baylor. Obviously, I'm picking both of them to win their first-round matchups over Clemson and Dayton, but my big, bold prediction is that we're going to see a Mountain West matchup in the Sweet 16 between 10-seed Nevada and 11-seed New Mexico.
Yeah, I think that's one that is going to be really interesting because I actually got Nevada versus New Mexico in the Sweet 16 as well. I guess we must have just been taking notes from one another, Tristan, because I think our brackets are looking very similar. I don't like the way that Arizona's coming into the NCAA tournament. They looked awful in the Pac-12 tournament. I love the form of New Mexico as well. And how much do you look for these teams that maybe had some moving parts towards the beginning part of the season? Because that's part of the reason why I do like New Mexico. The fact that their backcourt trio and Jalen House, Jamal Mashburn Jr., Donovan Dent, they haven't had a lot of time out there with one another, and I feel like they've been gaining chemistry more and more by the game, and I do feel like their upside might be a little bit more than that, than a lot of these teams that maybe peaked already.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have great guard play, you're not winning in March. You've seen that even from the elite teams, like the Gonzaga, Drew Timme teams. Like, as great as the bigs are, you need quality guard play, and if your mid-major teams with good guards, you have a shot. And as you mentioned with Mexico, they have some. Nevada also has a couple of great guards as well, including Keenan Blackshear. So if you defend well and if you guard, if you have good guards and you're experienced, then you absolutely have a shot to go deep. If you're some of these freshman teams, like Baylor and a few others, including Duke, you could be very vulnerable.
Yep, I do agree with you there. I think that Duke got a nice break being able to take on Vermont in the first round of the NCAA tournament, so I don't think that they're prone to that upset, but after that game, then I think it's going to be a little bit rough for them, but things are always easy on this podcast when you join, Tristan, because you lend just such great insights on this tremendous game of college basketball. You're a wealth of information. You've done a great job looking at everything from the offseason all the way up until now. So let's get people at home know what's all on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yeah, you can follow me at HoopsNut351 on Twitter, and you also follow at Bustin' Brackets for all the latest NCAA tournament news. And then also going to be keeping an eye on what's going on in the transfer portal because already 2 big signings today.
Yeah, I mean, my goodness, the transfer portal is hot and heavy. I'm not going to be getting as much of that on the podcast the next few weeks, but I could assure you, when the nets are cut down, we are going to be in full-on off-season mode. We'll have 6 months to be able to dissect it, break it down. I know that Tristan is knee-deep in all of it, and every single time he joins this podcast, he lends great insight. So big thanks to Tristan for joining me on Coast to Coast Hoops, now part of the VSiN Family podcast. And coming up next, it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this college basketball Wednesday as we hit some bank shots. And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family podcast. It is always a pleasure to get Tristan Freeman aboard. He does such great work over at Bussin' Brackets, taking a look at this great game of basketball that we all know and love. Every single time he joins this show, lends such good insights, and did so once again today. So big thanks to him for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this college basketball Wednesday as we hit some bank shots.
Most financial establishments close at a certain time, but not here. It is time for a side and total on every game on today's betting board bank shots.
Do note that as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at @June_D1. We are going to be going in tournament order, which pretty much from there goes time order. Like with the NCAA tournament, those games are up first. Early game is Grambling versus Montana State. Then we go to Colorado versus Boise State. Then we hit the NIT games in time order from there. And then the CIT is going to be at the bottom. So let's get things started with my DK Network write-up. This is hopefully going to be better than taking the over in a Virginia game. 701, 702 on the betting board. Grambling and Montana State to battle out there at Dayton. And for Montana State, they are a 3.5 to a 4-point favorite. Total on this game between 134.5 to 135. Right up here is going to be on Montana State. I was willing to lay up to 5 with them, set them as 5.5-point favorite. Grambling has yet to win a non-conference game against a Division I team. All of their wins this year either came against SWAC opponents or Division II teams. That speaks to me quite a bit in this situation. Now, Grambling, they play a lot of bye games and everything like that, but they are a putrid 312th in the country in terms of points scored on a per-possession basis, and it's not like they've got the world's worst guard play, as you've got Condavian Dozier along with Michael Morton. These two guys, they've been able to give you combined about 25 points per contest. They've been able to get a little bit more down low out of Antoine Burnett, who's able to give you about 10.6 rebounds per game, but with the way that Grambling is set up, they're going to be able to mask the main kryptonite that you do have with this Montana State team, and that's the fact that they cannot hit the offensive glass to save their lives. Montana State, out of 362 Division I teams, they are 356th in the country in terms of percentage of missed shots that do result in an offensive rebound. They've only got one player on the roster that gives you north of 4.3 rebounds per game, and he is built for tough. Robert Ford III, 16 points, 7.5 boards, 3 assists, 3 steals, shoots 42.5% from 3, but this is a Montana State unit that they've been shooting 42% from 3-point range here in the month of March. They go up against the Grambling team that they've been able to improve with their defense as the season has went along, but it has been a unit that when we've seen them in non-conference play, they were outside the top 250 in terms of points allowed on a per-possession basis. Numbers are looking a little bit better now, but a lot of that was just going up against these bad SWAC offenses, and I think that really does hype up their numbers quite a bit. And for Grambling, they just can't run good offense. For Grambling, in terms of their turnovers on a per-possession basis, they are well outside the top 250 with that regard, and now they have to go up against a Montana State team that, in a roadside score setting, they are 34th in all of college basketball in terms of turnovers forced on a per-possession basis. And for Grambling as well, when they are away from home, they give up 14.6 points more per 100 possessions rather than when they are at home. You got a Montana State team that is going to have the leg up in terms of opponents' 3-point shooting defense. For Grambling, they allow opponents to shoot 35% from 3-point range in a roadside court setting. Montana State, top 100 team with regards to opponents' 3-point shooting percentage as well. And for Montana State, they just run the better, more clean offense. You've been able to have Brandon Walker do a nice job, being able to give you about 13 points, 4 boards per contest. You've had Brian Garaki step up, give you about 13.5 points per game. I do think that Montana State going to be able to class this Grambling team. I do think that they're going to be able to generate those turnovers, and even though Grambling has been able to win quite a few games recently, that has been against a whole bunch of SWAC teams. Meanwhile, you've got a Montana State team that they have gotten incredibly hot with regards to their offense. This team, they have been able to exceed the 70-point plateau, and now every one of their games here in the month of March, 5 in total, but they go up against the Grambling team that's going to look to really take the air out of the ball in regulation and regulation only. Their game against Alabama State went to double overtime. They've now given up 72 points or fewer each of their last 4 games. I do think the things get get slowed down, and frankly, I just don't think that Grambling does their part with regards to this total. I set Montana State as a 5.5-point favorite, with Grambling allowing opponents to grab north of 31% of their misses as an offensive rebound. That's outside the top 325 in all of college basketball. Montana State's rebounding issues will not be exposed. That'll allow them to get the job done. My write-up pick here is Montana. I'm willing to lay up to 5 with them. Somebody total 131.5. Also looking at the under. Then we've got 703, 704, Colorado, and Boise State doing battle out there in Dayton. You've got Colorado, a 2.5-point favorite, total on scheme between 140.5 and 141. With Colorado, I did set them as a favorite of 4 points. I'm going to be one to lay the 2.5. For Boise State, this has been one of the top rebounding teams in all of college basketball. 17th in the country with regards to rebound rate. Colorado's even better than that. And for Colorado, they're a top 15 team with regards to their rebound rate, with their top 5 scorers, 4 of them giving you at least 5.2 rebounds per game. KJ Simpson, Tristan De Silva, such a good scoring duo, combining for about 35.5 points per game, with Simpson shooting 45.5% from distance. Now, for Colorado, the home and road splits with regards to their three-point shooting, that is a little bit concerning, as Colorado, they shoot 42.5% from three-point range at home. That does fall to about 35.5% in a road/neutral court setting, but you've also got a Boise State team that they shoot about 38.5% from three-point range at home. That drops off to about 31.5% in a road/neutral court setting. I like Tyson Dagenardi. He's able to give you 15 points, 5+ rebounds per game, but who's the main facilitator for Boise State? Right now, Cam Martin, who stands right around 6'9", has some versatility. He's been leading the team in terms of assists per game. Now, for this Colorado team, they've been giving it up from three-point range when they've been away from home. Colorado is allowing opponents to shoot about 33.5% from three-point range in a road/neutral court setting. That's more like 31.8% at home. Meanwhile, Boise State, their defense travels a little bit better. They allow opponents to shoot just 30% from distance in a road/neutral court setting, but I do think that Colorado, just with their depth of guys, you've got Eddie Lampkin, who gives you 7 boards per contest. You've been able to get about 11.5 points to 12 points, 6 boards out of Giovanni Hadley. You've even been able to get good production out of Luke O'Brien, who's able to give you 6.5 points, shoots 39% from 3. I do think that that's going to be absolutely massive, and as a matter of fact, for Colorado, out of their top 7 scorers that have made at least 1 3 this year, they're all shooting at least 37.7% from distance, even though you've been able to get some relatively good production out of guys like Chibuzo Agbo, who shoots 41.5% from 3, supplies the team with about 13.5 points per contest. You just don't have that with Boise State. As a matter of fact, out of their top 6 scorers, only 2 of them shoot above 32.3% from three-point range. Boise State does a better job of being able to protect the ball, but they really don't force a lot of turnovers. So I think the Colorado finds a way, gets the job done. And I do think that this is going to be a game that is going to be close enough for late game fouling. We got a Colorado team that has really stepped up with their defense, by the way, giving up fewer than 60 points in 3 of their last 4 games, while Boise State has actually had a fall off with this regard, giving up north of 75 points each of their last 4. So did somebody total 142. I like the over, and with Colorado, I'm going to be willing to lay up to 3.5 with them. Now we start hitting the NIT games. This is 705, 706 on the betting board. St. Joe's, they hope to not be average Joes. They're in a true road environment. They're going to be taking on Seton, and Seton, a favorite of 7 to 7.5 points. Total on this game is 145.5, and this is a circumstance where I said Seton is a 6.5 point favorite. I'm going to be willing to take 7+ here with St. Joe's. I actually do think that Seton is going to be pretty fired up to be in the NIT. I think that they've got something to prove after Virginia did lay that turd yesterday as well. But that said, when it comes to St. Joe's, this is a tough customer as well. We did see their defense drop off towards back half of the season. Like, first half of the season, this was a top 75 team in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. Going into late January, they were doing a nice job guarding the arc, and then things did toilet bowl from there. But it seems like they've really found it once again. They've given up 71 points or fewer in each of their last 4 games, going up against a Seton Hall unit that, it's been a little bit up and down for them. Seton Hall, one of your best rebound rate teams in all of college basketball. They're in the top 30 nationally, and it's been just an all-over-the-place defense. In their last 5 games, they've given up 85, 91, 56, 62, and 91 points. So, it has been up and down the boulevard for them. They really play to the style of the team that they're playing up against. You do have Jaden Bediako, who down low is able to give you 8.5 points, 7.5 boards per contest. But, it is a Seton Hall team that they commit nearly 13 turnovers per game. They do shoot just 33% from three-point range, all while being a team that, in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, sounds like it really blows you away at 121st. Now, they are seismically better at home rather than on the road. They give up 13.1 points fewer, 1 at home rather than in a road/neutral court setting. Meanwhile, it is an offense for Seton Hall that is clocking in 144th in all of college basketball in terms of points scored on a per possession basis. Again, scoring about 15.5 points more per 100 possessions when they're at home rather than when they're away from home, but they do go up against a St. Joe's team that has traveled relatively well with their offense. They're a top 100 team in terms of points scored per possession, and they've been able to do a little bit more down low ever since Christ Adesonko has come back. He's been able to give you about 5.5 boards blocked per contest. You've got Rasheer Fleming, who's able to supply 11.7.5 rebounds per game. Bit of a top-heavy St. Joe's team, but Eric Reynolds, he's a good go-to scorer. He's able to give you 17 points, shoots 38.5% from 3, while Xavier Brown, along with the other Brown and Mr. Cameron Brown, these two guys have done a very solid job being able to supply 24 points. You've been able to have Brown give out 3 assists, both shoot north of 37.5% from 3-point range against a Seton team that they're good, but they're not great at being able to guard the 3-point arc. Seton at home, they allow you to shoot 31.5% from 3. That falls off to 37% in a roadside switch court setting, but I do think that for St. Joe's, they're going to do an okay job holding up here. I do think that this is going to be a little bit of a lower scoring slog, as Seton has been a team that has been okay, maybe not great, but okay at being able to generate some turnovers as well. So did somebody total 144.5. I think that Seton going to get there a little bit of a slower style, and St. Joe's seems to be playing some better defense. So I like the under, and at 7+, I'm going to be willing to take the points with St. Joe's. 707, 708 on the betting board. UNLV, they're on the road. They're facing off against Princeton. Princeton is a favorite of 3 points. Your total on this game between 138.5 and 139.5. Did semi total 136. I'm going to be looking at the under. UNLV really is not too up-tempo of a team. Princeton is one of the slowest teams in all of college basketball out of your 362 Division I teams. Princeton, they're outside the top 3 at 40 with regards to total possessions per game. Meanwhile, you've got a UNLV team that they've been up and down all season long, and they're outside the top 200 with regards to rebound rate, while ranking about 320th with regards to their total possessions per game. You've been able to get a lot out of Dendron Thomas. He's been a really good guard for this team. 14 points, totals off 5+ assists per contest. Love what he's able to bring to the table, but now you have to go up against a Princeton team that, shock, surprise, surprise, they're very smart with the ball. They're a top 20 team in terms of fewest turnovers on a per possession basis. They as a collective shoot about 35.5% from 3. They're a top 10 team in free throw shooting percentage, shooting 81% as a collective. As a matter of fact, each out of your top 6 scorers shoot at least 77.2% at the free throw line, and each of your top 3 scorers give you at least 3.2 assists per contest. Xavier Lee, along with Matt Aloko, Camden Pierce, these guys have been absolutely incredible. They've been able to combine for about 46 points per contest. I'll give you no more than 3.6 assists, but no more than 3.2 assists per contest. Pierce is your main rebounder with about 9.5 rebounds per game. You've got Lee, who's able to give you about 6 boards as well, and then Matt Aloko is that main 3-point shooter, being able to shoot about 43.5% from 3, as each of your top 4 scores shoot at least 34.2% from 3-point range. Just a really good, smart team in general that, I mean, they're pretty solid at being able to guard the 3-point arc as well. Princeton, when they're at home, they allow opponents to shoot about 32.9% from 3-point range. This has been a UNLV team that has actually given up fewer points per possession away from home rather than at home, and they do allow opponents to shoot just 31.4% from 3-point range. So I do think that the defense is going to be able to remain lively for UNLV, but the Boone brothers have been dealing with a little bit of injury concern. It's a UNLV team that's doing a better job of being able to take care of the ball, but they themselves have been a little bit lackluster in the way that they've been able to shoot the ball from 3-point range. And even though they're a good perimeter defense, it's about 142nd in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. And if you look at the overall season numbers for UNLV, it's a team that on offense, in terms of points scored on a per possession basis, they're clocking in about 117, scoring about 3.3 points more per 100 possessions away from home rather than at home. But I think that Princeton going to be able to get this game to be a nice low-scoring slog. It's a UNLV team that in games have wrapped up in regulation, they have given up fewer than 65 points so far in their last 5. Meanwhile, you've got a Princeton team that they've been playing some air-burning games. They've given up 70 plus in each of the last 4, but I think that things calm down here. Did somebody total 136? I'd like the under with Princeton, willing to lay up to 3.5 with them. 709, 710 on the betting board. It is Wake Forest, and they play us Appalachian State, and App State is a underdog of 6.5 to 7 points. Total on this game between 145.5 to 147, and right now, seeing out there the 146.5s to 147s, I'd rather take that under rather than a 145.5 over. I did set my total 146. You've actually got an Appalachian State team that's relatively mid-tempo, but they're just so good with their defense. They're in the top 40 nationally in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, and much of it is just their overall post play. This Appalachian State team has a pair of guys that do a tremendous job of being able to block shots, as You got Trayvon Spillers, gives you 13 points, 8.5 boards, a little bit over block per contest, and then Justin Abson, 3 blocks, 7 boards, 8 points per game. Now, it is an Appalachian State team that only shoots about 68% of the free throw line. A little bit of concern with being able to get some sort of an outright win there, but that's being able to get points is a little bit less of a concern. And this is a Wake Forest unit that just doesn't have a lot of depth. Down low, you do have Efton Reed, Austin Carr. They're able to combine for about 13.5 rebounds per game, but past that, nobody else really gives you north of 4.7 rebounds per game for a team that only goes about 6 deep. As a result, Wake Forest outside the top 125 with regards to their overall rebound rate. Now, Wake Forest has been very good from three-point range. They shoot about 37.2% from three-point range. And Wake Forest, a far more efficient offense at home rather than on the road, scoring about 16.6 points more per 100 possessions at home rather than away. Hunter Sallis is going to be the best overall scorer in this game, 18 points, shoots 41% from distance. And for this Wake Forest team, each of your top 4 scorers, throw in there Kevin Boopy, Miller, Carr, along Calvin Hildreth, they're all able to shoot at least 36% from three-point range, but with really no depth whatsoever to speak of for this Wake Forest team, and a Wake Forest team that has really been struggling with their defense. They've given up at least 70 points in 4 of their last 5 games, 70 plus in 4 out of their last 5, going up against an Appalachian State team that has been able to do just tremendous work with their defense all season long. They've given up 67 points or fewer in 4 of their last 5 games. They've got the versatility of Donovan Gregory, 13 points, 4.5 boards, 3 assists while shooting 48% from three-point range. I do think that App State is able to hold in this game. I do think that in terms of motivation, App State going to be very motivated to be here. I did set my line at 6. I'm willing to take 6.5 plus, and did set my total 146. So 146.5 or higher, looking at the under, and I'm going to be willing to take those points with App State. 7-11, 7-12 on the betting board. SMU, it's the road they're facing off against Indiana State, and the old Sycamores find themselves as a 7-point favorite. Your total on this game between 157 and 157.5, with Indiana State can only make them a 6-point favorite. I'm going to be willing to take the points with SMU. SMU has been a top 40 team all season long in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. They go up against an Indiana State team that's in the top 20 nationally with regards to points scored on a per possession basis. So a little bit of a strength-on-strength matchup. Ryan Cornwell, Isaiah Swope, these two guys combined for about 33 points on 39% three-point shooting, but it's all about Robbie Avila, who's been so tremendous. 17.5 points, 6.5 boards, 4 assists, 6'10" big man that's able to shoot 40+% from three-point range. But here's the problem that Indiana State is going to face. SMU is tremendous at being able to guard the arc. In a road/shoot-to-corner environment, they allow opponents to shoot 30.9% from three-point range. That is a top 30 mark in all of college basketball, while Indiana State, they certainly have been having their woes in terms of their defense. They're outside the top 75 in terms of points allowed on a per-possession basis. For Indiana State, they're actually a really good perimeter defense at home. They allow opponents to shoot only about 30.5% from three-point range, but SMU, not really looking to maximize from three-point range. You're looking to punch a ball down low. SMU, top 55 team in terms of their rebound rate. You've got a pair of guys in Samuel Williamson, Tariq Smith, who've been able to combine for 13 rebounds, about 17 points per contest. Tariq Phelps, he does not shoot it well from three-point range at about 22%, but he gives you everything else. 3 assists, 2 steals, 14.5 points per game, and out of your top 4 scores for this SMU team, make it top 5 scores. You've only got one guy that shoots above 25% from 3, Chuck Harris, who supplies you with 13 points per contest. Yet the team does shoot overall about 34% from distance. It's because the, shall we say, ancillary pieces like a Ricardo Wright, like a BJ Edwards, Jalen Smith, these are all guys that they do shoot in that pocket about 37, 38% from three-point range. You got an SMU team that has very much a whole is greater than the sum of its parts sort of team with their approach. Now, we'll say this about SMU. They've given up at least 68 points in every one of their games since the beginning of the month of February, but I do think that they're going to do a nice job slowing this game down a little bit. It's an Indiana State team that fully recognize that they're not lauded for their defense or anything like that, but they've been able to step up, giving up 73 points or fewer in 5 out of their last 7 games. So I do think that this total has went a little bit too far. I think that SMU is going to do a nice job guarding the arc to be able to keep them in this game. Set my line at 6. Going to be willing to take 7 plus here with SMU and made my total 152. So I also like this total under. 7-13, 7-14 on the betting board. But Radley is going to be playing against Loyola Chicago. Loyola Chicago at 3.5 to a 4.5 point underdog. 137.5 to 139 is your total line. I did set my total 136. I'm going to be looking at the under. Loyola Chicago, a top 45 team in all of college basketball in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. Here's the issue that you've got with Loyola Chicago, though. They do see a sizable drop-off when they're away from home rather than at home in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. They give up north of 15 points more per 100 possessions away from home rather than at home. And you've got a Bradley team that's relatively balanced. This team is a top 110 team in terms of both points scored and points allowed on a per possession basis, ranking 60th in the defensive department. And For Bradley, they just provide a lot of ways to win. They're good but not great on the glass, a top 130 team with that regard, with having Darius Hannah, Malevi Leons be able to supply 25 points, 13.5 rebounds per game. Duke D and Connor Hickman, your top two scorers, combined to shoot 40% from three, 7 assists, 28.5 points per game. They do turn the ball over about 12 times per contest, but you've got a little bit of depth as well, as someone like an Amar Atlason, he's been able to shoot about 41% from three-point range, while Loyola Chicago, they are a top 75 team with regards to rebound rate. They don't have a single guy in the roster that gives you north of 5 rebounds per game. That's a little bit of an issue. Now, you do have someone in Miles Rubin who's able to give you 2.3 blocks per contest. He does a good job defending the rim. And for Loyola Chicago, this is one of the best teams in all of college basketball in terms of opponents' 2-point shooting percentage, but they do get absolutely lambasted from three-point range. Loyola Chicago, 210th in the country in terms of opponents' three-point shooting percentage away from home. Opponents shoot 37.3% from the outside, going against our Bradley unit that they allow opponents to shoot about 34% from three-point range at home. So that's a little bit open there. You've got Braden Norris, who's able to shoot 42.5% from the outside. He gives this Loyola Chicago team 9 points, 5 assists per game. But for Loyola Chicago, they're a low-tempo team that they commit about 13 turnovers per game. They're solid at being able to generate turnovers themselves, but Loyola Chicago, even though they have that high rebound rate, they don't necessarily generate for themselves a lot of second and third chances. It's been a Loyola Chicago team that's been a little bit stuck in the mud with regards to their offense as well. In regulation, they have scored fewer than 70 points for their last 5 games, going up against the Bradley unit that has been able to do a relatively solid job in terms of their defense. Towards the back half of the season, they were able to get on a nice run. They gave up 72 points or fewer in 4 out of their last 5 games. I do think that this Bradley team is going to be able to hold up at the point of attack and get the job done on their home floor. I did set my total 136. I like the under, and with Bradley willing to lay up to 5.5 with them, set them as a 6-point favorite. 7:15, 7:16 on the card. It is San Francisco on the road against Cincinnati. Yes, we are on to Cincinnati, and they're on to being a 5.5 to a 6-point favorite. Total is 142.5 to 143.5. Lots of travel here for San Francisco, but I'm still willing to take the points regardless. Anything of a 6 or more I'm willing to take, as I did set my line at a 5.5. For San Francisco, this was just one of the best defenses in all of college basketball during the regular season, and their team is not going to be looking to play super duper up-tempo. Now, they go up against a Cincinnati team that they themselves are about 31st in all of college basketball in terms of points allowed on a per-possession basis. Meanwhile, the Dons are 30th, so very comparable teams, but what I like about San Francisco, the defense is travel. They give up 1.4 points more per 100 possessions away from home rather than at home, and they're a top 15 team with regards to road points allowed on a per possession basis. Now, I would like to see a little bit more depth of rebounding, as this is a top 40 team with regards to rebound rate, but Jonathan Mogbo is the only guy that gives you north of 3.6 rebounds per game, 14.5 points, 10 boards, absolutely tremendous, but I do like the backcourt of this team. Malik Thomas, 12 points on 38% three-point shooting per game. They shoot 76% at the free throw line. They do commit about 11.5 turnovers per game, but you got Marcus Williams, who's able to supply you with 14 points per game, and Cincinnati is well outside the top 100 in terms of points scored on a per possession basis. Dan Skillings has had a really good year with 12.5 points, 6.5 boards, but he doesn't shoot it really well from three-point range. As a matter of fact, for Cincinnati, out of guys that have made multiple threes this far this season, out of their top 6 scorers, one of them shoots above 35% from three-point range. Shimius Lucasius, who's got good versatility, 11 points, 3 boards, 3 assists, shoots 36% from three-point range, but the team is not necessarily a threat from the outside. Was expecting a little bit more from Giselle James. They commit about 12 turnovers per contest, all while being a team that they very much rely upon a little bit more of just ball pressure in general in terms of not necessarily generating turnovers, but not allowing you to be comfortable with regards to the shots that you do take at Cincinnati. They allow opponents to shoot about 33.5% from three-point range. Meanwhile, for San Francisco, they've done a really good job of being able to cut off the three-point arc when they've been away from home. They allow opponents to shoot about 33.5% from the outside when they're away from home. It's actually better than the home mark, and they're one of the best two-point shooting defenses in all of college basketball. I think that this is going to lead to a slog of a game. I did set my total 135.5. I like the under, and at 6+, going to be able to take the points with the Dons. This is the last game for the NIT before we hit the CIT. 7:17, 7:18. VCU, they're facing off against Villanova. Villanova is a 6.5 point favorite. Totals between 130.5 and 131.5. Semi-total 127.5. I like the under. Both of these teams well outside the top 225 in terms of total possessions per game. And for this Villanova unit, this has been one of the best defenses in all of college basketball, really since the beginning of the month of February. If you just look at regulation and regulation only, because their game against Marquette went to overtime, this team has given up 70 points or fewer in regulation in all but one of their games since the beginning of the month. And for Villanova, they've had a little bit of an issue scoring. Eric Dixon, he gives you 16.5 points, 6.5 boards. Really, nobody else gives you north of 10.1 points per contest. And Villanova, they're okay, but they're not great on the glass. Mr. Dixon, along with Tyler Burton, are able to combine for about 12.5 rebounds per game, but VCU has the upper end with regards to rebound rate. They're a top 75 team in the country with that regard. That despite the fact that you've got one guy in Toby Lowell that gives you north of 5 rebounds per game, 7.5 points, 6 boards per contest, but from there it becomes a whole greater than sum of its parts approach. Out of your 4 double-figure scores, you've got 3 of them that give you between 4.4 and 4.7 rebounds per game. Nothing more, nothing less. Sean Barsaw's good versatility, 10 points, 4.5 boards, 4 assists, has not shot it well from 3-point range. Really, your main guy has been Max Shulga, shooting 42% from 3, 14.5 points per game, but while this VCU team has had some struggles from beyond the arc, they've done a good job of guarding the arc. In a road or neutral court environment, they allow opponents to shoot just 31.1% from 3-point range, 43rd in the country. Villanova does allow opponents to shoot about 33.5% from distance at home, but that 3-point shooting defense has really been able to pick up steam as the season goes along. And Villanova does do the better job of the little things, top 10 team in the country with regards to free throw shooting percentage. They only turn the ball over 10 times per contest, while VCU commits about 12 turnovers per game, but I like the way that VCU has been able to guard in the interior as well. They've been absolutely remarkable with regards to their defense. They have now given up 62 points or fewer in each of their last 4 games, so I think that this game is going to be a giant slog. Set my line at 5.5. We'll take 6+ here with VCU, and did set my total 127.5, so I'm going to be taking a look at this total under as well. And now we've got 2 games out there for the CIT. This starts with 895, 896. It is Old Fort Wayne, IPFW, and they're going to be playing on the road against Bowling Green. Right now, Bowling Green anywhere between a 1-point favorite to a 1-point underdog. Total on this game is 146.5. I set Bowling Green as a 1.5 point favorite. I'm going to be one to take them whether they're laying a point or if they're a money line underdog. I'll just take them outright on the money line for Bowling Green. The big key for them, winning the battle on the glass. You've got a Fort Wayne team that's outside the top 250 with regards to rebound rate. Bowling Green, they're more around 100th with having Rashawn Agee be really that main man down low. 10 boards, 13.5 points per game, but you do have the versatility of 6'10" Jason Spurgeon. He's been able to give you 10 points, 5.5 boards, lets it fly at 34.5% from 3-point range. Now, part of the issue that you do have with Bowling Green, they shoot a paltry 29.7% from 3-point range. That is one of the worst parks in all of college basketball, going up against a Fort Wayne team that has been pretty rock solid in terms of being able to guard the arc. They're in the top 125 with regards to opponents' 3-point shooting percentage, and that's been a spot where Bowling Green has really struggled at home. Opponents do shoot 38% from 3-point range against them, and this is a Fort Wayne team that overall, they've been able to shoot as a collective about 35% from 3-point range, but this Fort Wayne team has not been the same when they've been away from home rather than when they've been at home. For Fort Wayne, in terms of points scored on per possession basis, 106th in all of college basketball, and the fall-off with regards to their points scored per possession, that's only about 3.6. That's not necessarily too bad, but this unit has a much more difficult time being able to take care of the ball, as their turnover rate, it does go way up, as this has been one of the best teams with regards to just being able to take care of the ball in general. In terms of turnovers committed on a per offensive play basis, for Fort Wayne, this team does rank in the top 50 nationally with this respect, but that said, when they do get outside of their friendly confines, they do get very much more loose with the ball, so that's a little bit of a concern going up against a Bowling Green unit that they don't have a lot of outside shooting, but they do have a guy in Marcus Hill who generates a steal, gives you 2.5 assists, supplies the team with 20.5 points per contest. Trey Thomas, he gives you a little bit over a steal. He's been able to supply the team with about 11.5 points per contest, and for Bowling Green, they've been able to do a nice job with regards to their interior defense, as well as somewhere where IPFW, aka Fort Wayne, they can seem to struggle just a little bit, and I do think that that is going to be able to win out in this spot. It's a Bowling Green team that, with regards to opponents' 2-point shooting percentage, 109th in all of college basketball. Meanwhile, for Fort Wayne, 291st, so I think the Bowling Green is going to be looking to win within, and I think that they're going to be able to do so on their own floor. So, did set Bowling Green as a 1.5 point favorite, looking at them on a pick-em line as a money line underdog or laying a point, and then did set my total 153.5. Bowling Green, I think, is going to look to explode with regards to their tempo. Todd Simon has always been an up-tempo coach, and for Fort Wayne, they're in the top 75 with regards to total possessions per game, so do like this over as well. And then we wrap things up with 3 of 6-5-0-1, 3 of 6-5-0-2. Austin P plays us at Alabama A&M. A&M is between a 13 to a 13.5 point underdog. Totals between 144.5 and 145. I did set my line to where I'm willing to lay up to 13 points with Austin P. Austin Peay did lose their top scorer DeMarcus Sharp for about a month, and that led to a big giant renaissance for this team, as they've been one of the slowest teams in all of college basketball in terms of total possessions per game. But if you look at the recent form of Austin Peay, this team has gone to at least 75 points in every game that they have played since the beginning of the month of February, and you've got an Alabama A&M team that doesn't have a single healthy player averaging double figures. They had Dalen Smith, who was able to supply the team with 14 points per contest, has not been seen since February 5th, though, so they're relying upon Cameron Tucker along with Amari Peak in the backcourt, who are able to combine for just over 19 points per contest. Tucker has been able to give you about 4 assists per contest, but he also leads the team with 4.3 rebounds per game. This Alabama A&M team is going to get completely lambasted on the glass, and that's despite the fact that Austin Peay, they themselves don't necessarily have a ton of rebounding, but with Sharp, he's able to be the deodorant to a lot of stink that you might have with that respect. 17 points, 6 boards, 4.3 assists per contest for an Austin Peay team that has been able to get it going from three-point range. As a collective, they're shooting about 36% from the outside. Players not named Sharp that have made at least 1 3 this year. Their next top 3 scorers, they all shoot at least 36.7% from the outside. Desi Jones shoots 36% with 14.5 points per contest. Jamari Black along with Isaac Haney, they've combined for 24 points on 39% three-point shooting. In Austin Peay, top 20 team in all of college basketball in terms of fewest turnovers on a per possession basis, as they only turn the ball over 8.7 times per contest. They go up against an Alabama A&M team that's going to mask the stink of them not necessarily doing a great job on the glass. Alabama A&M outside the top 200 with regards to their rebound rate, and when it comes to this Alabama A&M team, I think that they're really going to be struggling to just keep up defensively. Alabama A&M is 183rd in all of college basketball in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. Austin Peay has had their issues as well. They're now up to 324th in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, actually giving up more points per possession at home rather than on the road. And when it comes down to it with this Alabama A&M team, a lot of their metrics have been warped by SWAC competition when they were outside the conference. They were one of the bottom teams in all of college basketball in so many different defensive categories, and with Austin Peay really being able to get hot from three-point range, now being able to shoot 39.5% from three-point range at home, I think that Austin Peay is able to put on a show. I set my line at a 13.5, so one lay up to 13 with Austin Peay, and did set my total 147.5. Also looking at the over, and that wraps things up for the Wednesday edition of Coast to Coast Hoops, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast, and a big thanks to Tristan Freeman of Boston Brackets for joining me in the last segment. If you do like what you're hearing from this fine podcast, Coast to Coast Hoops, you're able to subscribe wherever you get your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, whatever you for this podcast, you do have one of two ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at @Jane_41. Keep in mind, letters EM, they mean does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. Other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review coming at you guys every single day throughout the college basketball season. That means I'm coming at you once to get them all. Thank you so much for tuning in.
If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.